Hey there, my name is Sir Ebro. I am an educator with the Avalon Center. Today, we will be discussing power-based violence. This is a hard topic for many reasons. It is an issue that affects people from all walks of life, regardless of age, background, or circumstance. It is important to learn about its dynamics and the resources available for people to get help, ask questions, and find support. The more we understand power-based violence, the better we can support ourselves, our loved ones, and our communities. So let's go learn about it. Power-based violence refers to harmful behaviors used to control, intimidate, or manipulate another person. These behaviors often stem from an imbalance of power and can occur in many different environments and relationships. Power-based violence can take many forms, including domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, child abuse, elder abuse, and human trafficking. Avalon Center provides advocacy and support services for individuals affected by domestic violence and sexual assault. Anyone who has been impacted either personally or through the experience of a loved one may be eligible to receive free and confidential services through the Avalon Center. In situations where domestic violence or sexual assault are connected to other forms of power-based violence, the Avalon Center may also be able to offer guidance, resources, education, and compassionate support to those affected. The state of Tennessee defines sexual assault as sexual contact or penetration without consent, often involving force, threats, or the victim's incapacity. It encompasses a range of acts, including rape, sexual battery, and statutory rape, with varying degrees of severity depending on factors like the victim's age and the presence of aggravating circumstances. The state of Tennessee also states, domestic violence occurs when a person uses physical violence, coercion, threats, intimidation, isolation, stalking, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, or economic abuse to control another partner in a relationship. Domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behaviors in relationships, which in Tennessee encompass dating, marriage, family, and roommate relationships. Although physical abuse is commonly recognized, relationships characterized by power-based violence frequently involve a range of abusive behaviors. As demonstrated by the power and control wheel, these behaviors are driven by the perpetrator's underlying need for power and control. The next layer, shown in white, are the different tactics that are often present before physical abuse. When intimidation is used to maintain power and control, a perpetrator may try to create fear through looks, actions, or gestures. This can include behaviors like smashing objects, damaging property nearby, harming pets, or displaying weapons. Even when physical violence is not directly stated, these actions can send the message that harm could happen, leaving a person feeling fearful and unsafe. The next tactic is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse often develops gradually, which can make it hard for someone to recognize the relationship as unhealthy or abusive at first. It involves patterns of behavior meant to gain power and control over another person through insults, humiliation, constant criticism, gaslighting, name-calling, and mind games. Over time, these behaviors can affect a person's confidence and emotional well-being. Isolation is a tactic sometimes used by perpetrators of violence to gain and maintain power and control in a relationship. It often happens gradually, with the person being pulled away from friends, family, coworkers, or other important support systems. This can look like controlling who someone spends time with, monitoring phone calls or social media, creating tension with loved ones, or making a person feel guilty for spending time with others. Over time, this can leave someone feeling alone, dependent, and disconnected from the people and resources that could offer support and safety. A perpetrator may also create conflict with supportive people in someone's life, forcing them to feel like they have to choose sides. They may then use these conflicts as reasons to limit visits or communication. For example, they might say things like, "They don't want us together. Every time you spend time with them, they talk badly about me." Or, "They just don't like me." Over time, arguments may begin to happen whenever the person spends time with others, making it easier for the perpetrator to increase isolation and control. Minimizing, denying, and blaming are tactics perpetrators use to avoid responsibility and maintain power and control in a relationship. They may downplay the abuse, deny it happened, or blame the other person for their behavior by saying things like, "You made me do it," or "You're overreacting." Over time, these behaviors can cause someone to question their own feelings, experiences, and sense of reality. Using children is a tactic of abuse, in which an abusive parent manipulates, threatens, or uses children to maintain control over the other parent. This may include guilt, intimidation, or involving children in adult conflict. In orders of protection cases where children are not included in the order, the abusive parent may say things like, "I would come home, but they won't let me," to make the children blame the protective parent. Because children may not fully understand the situation, they can become confused and emotionally distressed while the abusive parent reinforces control within the family. An abusive person may use dominance to establish and maintain control over another individual through intimidation and authority. This can include acting superior, making unilateral decisions, speaking down to or humiliating the other person, and using tone, posture, or presence to create fear or compliance. The goal of these behaviors is to reinforce a power imbalance in the relationship, making the other person feel less capable of making their own choices or asserting themselves. Economic abuse is a form of power and control where one person uses money, finances, or access to resources to limit another person's independence and ability to make their own choices. This can include preventing someone from working, requiring them to ask for money, giving them an allowance, taking their earnings, or denying them access to family income. Sometimes, the abuse is less direct, such as creating obstacles that make it difficult for a person to get to work, causing problems at their job, or interfering with transportation, which can eventually lead to the loss of employment. Over time, economic abuse can leave survivors feeling trapped, as they may not have the financial resources needed to safely leave the situation or regain independence. Threats and coercion are tactics used to intimidate, manipulate, and dominate another person through fear, pressure, or implied consequences. This behavior may include verbal threats, intimidation, humiliation, monitoring, or the use of authority or physical presence to force compliance. Coercion often strips a person of their sense of safety, autonomy, and freedom to make independent choices, creating an environment where they feel trapped, controlled, or afraid to resist. Over time, these patterns can cause emotional distress, anxiety, confusion, and a loss of confidence, as the individual learns to act out of fear rather than personal choice. The outer layer of the power and control wheel represents physical and sexual violence, which are often used to reinforce fear, maintain control, and intimidate another person within an abusive relationship. Physical violence can include actions such as hitting, pushing, restraining, damaging property, blocking exits, or any behavior that causes physical harm or fear of harm. Sexual violence includes any unwanted sexual contact, pressure, coercion, manipulation, or acts performed without clear and voluntary consent. These behaviors are not about anger, they are intentional tactics used to establish dominance and create fear. The outer layer reminds us that physical and sexual violence are often connected to ongoing tactics shown within the wheel to reinforce a cycle of power and control that can deeply affect a person's safety, confidence, and well-being. Power-based violence can affect anyone, and it often begins in ways that are subtle, confusing, and difficult to recognize. Understanding power-based violence is important because it helps us recognize unhealthy behaviors, support survivors, and promote safer, healthier communities through education, awareness, and prevention. Every person deserves to feel safe, valued, heard, and empowered. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, support is available and no one has to face it alone. Our advocates are here and available for options, education, and resources. If you have additional questions or would like follow-up information, you can reach the Avalon Center for free and confidential services by phone number, Office 931-456-0747, Crisis Line 1-800-641-3434. Website, www.avaloncentertn.org. Office address: 196 10th Street, Crossville, Tennessee, 38555. See you next time.